Awesome. Well, pleasure to meet everyone here. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Daniel. I guess a little bit of background on myself. I was a recruiter for 6 years, primarily hiring within sort of the data and AI space. I focus primarily on sort of, data engineering, data visualization type roles. I work for companies like Servian, who got acquired by Cognizant. And then also at the moment, I work for a company called D. Watson Consulting, a Power BI and Fabric specialist consultancy as well. Obviously, the topic cracking the data and AI job market in Melbourne is a pretty big topic. If you look around, everyone here, if anyone here is looking for a role, everyone's going to be in different scenarios, different situations, applying for different roles with different skill sets. So my main goal for today is just to try and equip you guys with strategies to tackle the data and AI job market, and hopefully you get a little bit of value by the end of this. So I guess talking on sort of the big topic AI, right? I'm not going to focus too much on AI and sort of the technologies and stuff like that are going through, but I did want to just pull this up. It's a very recent study that was done on the current state of AI within sort of the human resources market, how it's been affecting sort of recruitment processes and other things. But in general, the consensus is that at the moment, you don't have to worry too much about facing too much AI through the interview process, at least when it comes to the interviewing stage. Most of the statistics are showing that, companies are slow to adopt to AI. You can kind of read, on here, there are a lot of risks and stuff like that come into play. Primarily where you're going to be tackling sort of those types of products and whatnot is going to be in the resume screening phase. So a lot of companies, their first point of call when they are sort of looking at AI use cases within sort of the recruitment field, most of the times they are looking at ATS, applicant tracking systems, right? How they can get qualified candidates through the door and into interviews as fast as possible and make sure it's actually done correctly. Now, this is something that companies are starting to implement quite a lot, and I'll kind of touch on that within the next slide. So the main point of topic I wanted to cover today is employers market versus employees market. Awesome. So employers market versus employees market. These are normally the two types of markets that you'll ever be facing as someone looking for a role, whether you're immediately looking or not. You can kind of see the differences between there, but I guess at the moment, can anyone tell me what type of market we're in right now based off reading the dot points?
Employees market.
Employees market, exactly. And we've seen a dramatic shift from that as well, right? So, employers market, we kind of get shafted a little bit, and employees market, we have all the power, right? So at the moment, we are in the employers market. A lot of that is just coming as a result of after COVID, right? During COVID, heaps of tech spending went in. Everyone was, investing a bunch of money. Salaries went through the roof, and now we're starting to face the consequences a little bit. There's layoffs, there's, things are going on. And it's not the best market to be in at the moment if you are looking for a role, but that doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities out there. The main point of what I'm going to try and do today is focus on shifting your mindset of changing from an employee's market to an employer's market, and what you need to change in sort of your applicant strategies and your interview processes to adjust for the market that we're in right now. So how do you do that? Well, if you go on ChatGPT and you say how to approach job interviews in an employer's market, this is what you will get. Strengthen your resume, prepare for tougher competition, improve interview performance, be flexible with salary and benefits, network, show long-term value, and stay resilient. Now, these are all really, really good points, but in reality, you should be doing this no matter what market you're in, right? I know in the employees market, it's a little bit easier, but in reality, these are habits that you should get into throughout any time that you are applying for a role or whenever you're in that stage. But the main difference to really think about is mindset shift. So the employers market playbook, and I'm going to go through that, it's all about shifting your mindset. So I'm going to touch over things about being hyper-targeted, quality over quantity, positioning yourself as a top 1% candidate, deep research being non-negotiable whenever you're applying for a role, and mastering the application and interview strategies as well. But it is going to be mostly focusing on sort of the mindset, because I was trying to create something that I guess, or talk about something that applies to everyone here, because everyone's going to be at different stages in careers and stuff like that. So I tried to keep it a little bit generic, but afterwards, during the Q&A, if anyone has any specific questions and things like that, feel free to reach out to me after the event or on LinkedIn, or, answer the question in the Q&A. Yeah, go ahead.
You said position yourself as a top one candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you position yourself?
Yep, I'll be getting to that in sort of the next slides. So wait, and I will get to that in a second. But if anyone has any questions at any point in time, please feel free to reach out. If you feel like it might be something that I'll talk on later on, hold it till the end. But if it's something you want to ask about what I'm talking about right now, just like that, feel free to ask it and I'll be happy to answer. So the biggest shift, the shift is going to be from what I want to what they need. That is the biggest difference when shifting different markets. When you're in an employee's market, it is all about what job do you want. You have the option, you have the freedom. There is an excess of roles. You can pick what you want, or theoretically, right? Obviously, that's not obviously going to always be the case. But when you're in an employer's market, it shifts to what do they need, and you need to be strategizing your entire application strategy around what the employer needs. So I'll be providing examples of sort of mindset shifts in terms of that. But, changing it from, my resume should cover everything I've done so far, talking about my experience, to my resume should be laser focused for what this job requires. And that's going to be touching on an element of trying to become sort of the top 1% applicant. And that's hard to do. It's very, very hard to do. And probably, everything I'll show on these slides isn't a guaranteed method. But, that is what you should be thinking about when applying for roles or looking for roles within an employer's market, because they have the power. They're not hiring excess. You need to be the one person that they hire for each role. So, also my PowerPoint skills are atrocious, so it's mostly just going to be text. But yeah, so what roles to apply for to be hyper-targeted? So what do I want? I'll apply for anything remotely related to my skill set. And you change it to how much value can I provide and demonstrate to this organization? And if you think about that, you'll start thinking about the types of roles that you should be applying for. And this is a general strategy in an employee's market. You apply for a lot of different stuff, right? You kind of see what you can get. In an employer's market, they are getting inundated with applications. Every job has hundreds of applications. They're putting it through an ATS. They're trying to filter it through. So what you need to be focusing on most is trying to tailor your application as specific to what they need as possible, and making sure that nothing is generic. Everything needs to be targeted. I mean, a lot of people here work in data. You understand how important it is to do that, right? Having targeted data and targeted applications towards different roles. I didn't mean to skip that one just yet. But yeah, so you can kind of see key differences in an employer's market, right? Employers can afford to be picky. They want people that have an exact skill match to what they need right now. Now, obviously, if you're in a smaller company and they don't have as many people, they might be a little bit different. But in general, you're going to be fighting to be the one person that can do the job that no other applicant can, because that's all they need. They don't need anymore. Generic applications don't work. I touched on this beforehand. And sometimes the best jobs aren't always the most obvious ones. You may need to explore adjacent roles. There aren't an excess of roles at the moment. So thinking about how your skill sets can apply to different roles in different domains, that's something to think about as well. So how do you adjust your strategy? These are just some tips I've put up here, but really these are general things, right? You can apply this type of mindset to any type of role or any type of job that you're kind of applying for, right? So focusing on analyzing the job descriptions deeply, not just looking at the text, reading between the lines, having a look at all the different tech stacks, where they're heading, have a look at the LinkedIn profiles, diving deep into exactly what they need and tailoring your solution around that, right? Not just having, and I'll get into this in a second, but not just having one resume for every role, right? Data engineering, if you're a data engineer or a data platform developer, right, it's such a diverse range. It's different companies that use different tech stacks, different ways of working, right? You need to be thinking about what the possibilities are of those companies when you're sort of looking for these different roles as well. Matching roles to your existing experience, don't rely on potential transferable skills alone. You need to be showing what actionable skills you have demonstrated already. If you are someone that is trying to get into the job market, I cannot stress enough how important it is to do personal projects. Figuring things out, well, not just one, it's very impressive to show an employer things that you've built on your own and you've taken your own initiative and all of that. But in general, being able to show things that you've built, problem solving, taking them through working examples, all of those things go long, long ways to pursuing confidence with an employer that you have the exact skills that they need to take you on for the role. Use job search platforms strategically. A lot of them have filters. There's, when I say targeted roles, just use the filters, try and target by specific industry, and I'll kind of get into different industries and stuff like that later on. Reverse engineering hiring trends, having a look at what the company's been doing. Have they been letting people go? Are they in mass hiring? What position are they at? Having a look at the company's growth on LinkedIn over time. If you don't know, you can go onto a company's LinkedIn profile and you can see how many people have been in the organization over a number of years. If you look at an organization and they've had the same amount of employees for 5 years, then they're probably not in a hyper growth phase, right? And you can adjust. Whereas if the graph goes like that, you can make adjustments based on your application with the data that you're getting. And then always apply where you have an edge, right? Especially in this market, domain and industry specific experience, especially within data engineering and data platform development, is so critical right now, especially with a bunch of stuff that's going on in terms of different AI regulations and whatnot that are being implemented across different industries and sustainability. You've got new regulations and stuff like that coming in that are being going to report next year. So all of these things are being forced onto these companies as part of government regulation and stuff like that as well. And they need people that know how to do stuff already, right? So industry and domain experience is very, very important. Sorry. Yes, that would be my girlfriend asking where I am. I'm cooked, guys. She's going to kill me. But how to assess yourself in line with an employer's market. So this is basically having a look at your own internal skill set and being able to self-evaluate where you're at based off the market, right? So where do you meet or exceed expectations? This is when you're looking at a particular role or something like that. Checking salary trends and in-demand skills. Do you align with current hiring priorities? Having a look at people that are within the companies, within your ideal roles as well. A lot of people on LinkedIn have different technologies and tech stacks that they're working with within that company. So you can kind of align your job application to those people that are already there and kind of see what they've been doing. A lot of people sometimes include project work that they've done on their LinkedIn profiles in their summaries. Have a look at the different projects that they've done. Have a look at different people. What have they achieved? Where have they come from? What domain experience do they need to do? All of this is information that you can use to target and make your application better. And also develop missing skills strategically. The job search doesn't just happen from just applying to roles. It's continuous learning and development, especially in a market that's as tight as this. Have a look at all the different job ads for the roles that you're looking for and see what skills you're missing. If you're ticking all the boxes, improve them and then start working on how you can show those skills. If you don't have the skills yet, start learning them. And then include what you're learning in your resume as well and show that you're already taking the initiative to kind of get the ball running and kind of, get to that point that they need for you to kind of get into that role. And adapt to what different company types value most. This is something that a lot of people don't do that I've found very successful in kind of telling people how to get into sort of, the job market and also change roles. Is that depending on the type of company it is, even if it has exactly the same tech stack as you worked beforehand, they have different priorities. Enterprise, these are just examples. Obviously, it's going to change from company to company, but, enterprise, a lot of the stuff that they kind of prioritize structure, stakeholder management, process expertise. In startups, they've got to want to wear multiple hats, change different ways. How can you juggle different responsibilities? When you're in consulting, it's all about the client-facing skills. Can you identify opportunities for further progress and development? In product, it's demonstrating expertise, problem-solving skills. I must have not finished that point. But also what you've built in beforehand, how you design things, how you think about the gaps within your products and stuff like that as well. And services, your ability to deliver consistently under pressure. Right? These are all different things that apply to different companies that might have exactly the same role, exactly the same tech stack, but they prioritize different things. And if you're hiring for a junior engineer in a startup versus an enterprise, those roles are going to look very different as well, right? So you need to be thinking about the type of organization and what they value and what they prioritize and taking that into account when you're applying for your roles. How am I going for time? I don't know how long.
You're only 15 minutes.
Perfect. And so, I include some things there about how to adjust, but you can see, I'll use the same pitch for all companies versus I'll tailor my approach based on the company's priorities. So that's coming down against, having different resumes, structuring things, tailoring things from job application to job application and hyper-focusing. I can't I can't stress enough how important that is, because otherwise you just get left, in sort of the pile of applications. Passive recruitment for candidates. So the difference of mindset of I'll apply to public job postings and wait for a response versus I'll position myself to be discovered and recruited before a job is even posted. I didn't get the certain stats on here. I don't know why, but in general, in an employer's market, I think saw a report that said about 70, maybe not 70%, but at least 50% of roles generally are filled without actually going to market, either via internal referrals, word of mouth, all of that kind of stuff, right? So how can you get in front of organizations without applying for a role? Now, I can tell you a couple of different things. The most important one, I cannot stress enough, is optimize your LinkedIn to get inbound recruiter messages. Now, there's multiple ways you can do that, but LinkedIn Recruiter is one. I guess, is everyone here familiar with LinkedIn Recruiter, or do I need to explain what that is?
You need to explain.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, LinkedIn Recruiter is a tool that is built by LinkedIn to help organizations scout and hire talent. So if anyone here has ever received an email on LinkedIn with a job application that says, "Hi, I've got X job, it's way below what I'm valued at," and probably a bunch of other stuff as well, right? But that is a recruiter going onto LinkedIn Recruiter and binding your profile and sending you a message. Now, LinkedIn Recruiter, I could do a whole talk on, because there's a whole bunch of different things that I can do. But in general, LinkedIn Recruiter is either the first or the second option companies go to when they are hiring for a role, or potentially third, depending on how they do their process. So you've got your public job posting boards like Seek, Indeed, Jora, all of that. They have their internal database where if they've spoken to you beforehand, they probably have your details saved in their internal database. And if they have a good applicant tracking system, they will use that first because they have all the data in there. Fortunately, a lot of organizations don't have the data in there correctly. We all work in data. We know how messy it can be sometimes. And then the third option is LinkedIn Recruiter. Now, how does that happen? I'll probably show it up here, but the way that it works is that on LinkedIn, you get a recruiter license, and then that gives the people the option to basically check for people that are open to work, right? So you know how LinkedIn has an option that says open to work. And when they do that, they then use a filtering system that they can either input a bunch of different fields, like what year you started your current role, keywords, technologies, what you're interested in, if you're open to work, if you're responsive as well. That's a statistic they track that not a lot of people know about. On LinkedIn Recruiter, you can actually get a tag that says more likely to respond. So if you respond to recruiters' emails, and you don't respond to them, start responding to them and saying no, because that sends you up the algorithm in LinkedIn Recruiter, because their LinkedIn Recruiter's job is to get people to use it to hire people. So they want to get people hired as quickly as possible. So they push as much data as they can to a recruiter to show that you are ready to be contacted about a role. And what they do is they filter the data on LinkedIn Recruiter, and all of that data comes from your profile. Right? So if you don't have it on your LinkedIn profile, they can't find you via that search thing. So if you have a profile that's bare bones, just titles and stuff like that, that won't be good enough for a person to find you. They can search by job title, they can search by the summary, they can search by keywords, and they can combine it all into one as well. And they can also exclude organizations and include organizations as well. Just in case there's some conflict of interest and stuff like that, right? But the point being is that all the information that you put on LinkedIn Recruiter can be searched by a recruiter on that platform to search for you. So if you don't have it updated, that's one of the most important things you can do, and respond and start generating traffic on LinkedIn, right? Mm-hmm. Just do anything you can to get your algorithm up as possibly as you can without annoying people, obviously. Right, but just respond to those emails and stuff like that.
Quick question. So there is no button to say to a LinkedIn offer. So you can only apply for that. You can't reject
when the message comes in by email.
Okay.
So this is not a job posting. This is someone messaging you directly in your message box.
Yeah. So you can only apply for it. There is no way that you can reject it.
LinkedIn Recruiter.
Yeah.
You can reject it. If someone messages you, you can say, no, I'm not interested. And then just type something out. Just message him. Just message him and say, hey, man, I'm not interested.
Yeah, you can.
And just responding, no matter how it is, whether it's via a certain button or whatever, just responding gets that data in and sends it up the algorithm. And then, two, networking strategically. Obviously, everyone's heard of that one. And join communities like you are here as well. They're all good passive ways of networking and finding people and stuff like that. But LinkedIn Recruiter is the most important one. When I was working as a recruiter, I think about 80% of my hires came from LinkedIn Recruiter. It's just the best platform that we have to use, and it's awesome, and it's much better than Seek and stuff like that as well, right? So LinkedIn Recruiter is so important, and getting a LinkedIn profile up to date is very, very important as well. Yep, and then building a resume and applying for a role in an employer's market. So I've been touching on this throughout the entire thing, right? But, as I mentioned, my resume should list all my past responsibilities versus my resume should be a targeted sales pitch for why I solved their problems. So creating multiple versions of each resume, using industry keywords strategically. This is a new one that I've been putting in, and that's just because the applicant tracking systems, they can have it set up to look for specific words within your resume to put it through. So making sure you use some AI tools or whatever, whatever you might need to use. You can ask for it for keywords and then kind of insert it into that. I will say as well, in terms of the whole AI tool, using it for recruiting and job applications and whatnot, the general advice is just go for it, but don't rely on it, right? It's a tool, not a solution. The amount of resumes I've seen come through with people that have just copied and pasted, and it says from ChatGPT on the bottom, or and it hasn't been formatted. There's words that AI uses that is common throughout different phrasings, and the ATS systems are starting to pick that up now as well. So you need to be conscious of what you are putting in. Use it for generation. Use it for creativity. Hell, I use AI to come up with sort of bits and pieces of this presentation as well, right? Like, you said no one's going to kind of, as long as you're not lying, you're not talking about it. Recruiters in general, their role is to hire. They don't necessarily care what tools you've used, and kind of get through that. And then the interview sort of mindset shifts in employer market, right? And this is something I could do a whole session on, but this is sort of what I want to kind of try and change when you are in interviews, is that you are no longer trying to convince them why you're just, why you've got a good skill set. You're trying to convince them why they need you, right? So why I want this job to why they need me, talking about what solutions and stuff like that you can solve right now. I'll answer their questions to I'll lead the conversation. Interviews are a two-way street. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that beforehand, but there is nothing, I guess, in the interview process, right? The main thing you're trying to do is instill confidence that you're the best candidate for this role, right? And a good way to do that is making them feel like you're already a part of the team. And sometimes leading the conversation and kind of guiding them through what you think they want as well can go a long way to showing that you already have the skill set and the capability and the mental idea needed of what's going on to kind of, push things through. But I think I'm almost on time, so I did kind of speed through that. So questions. Does anyone have any questions? I'm happy to answer specific questions to your situation and also general questions as well.
So my question was a general question, but it's more in regards to cover letters. And sometimes the platforms like LinkedIn has one platform for profile, but then Seek has a resume cover letter section, and it tells you like 56% of people filled in the cover letter, and you're filling in the same information sometimes again. Would you say it's worth it to refill everything again, like extensively correctly, or what goes into there?
Yeah, so my general advice is that if you've got the time, do it. And that's just because, I think if you're taking a hyper-targeted approach and you aren't doing that for 30 applications a night or whatever, I think it's not too much to do. Unfortunately, it's just the system sucks sometimes, right? But that's why you need to repeat the information. But in terms of cover letters, I know a lot of people ask, are they important? Do people actually read them and stuff like that? The general answer is that some companies do, some companies don't, and you can't afford to take the risk if they don't. Especially in a market like this, if anything can give you an advantage, please try and write it. The main distinction, but I would say, because sometimes people get confused between resumes and cover letters and what to include in both. And sort of the way I kind of put it is that your resume is a demonstration of what your past experience is, and then a cover letter is your first sales pitch for the role. So the difference should be taking the experience that's on your resume and targeting it specific to the role. And basically, it's a good exercise for this actually, is changing the mindset of how you sell yourself, right? Cover letters is a really good way to kind of focus on what your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and what you think you can do and what you can't do, right? It's a really good way to actually introspectively look at yourself as well. Because in a cover letter, you should be trying to say to them, I can do this job. And if you're struggling, then you kind of know that, I guess from a skill set perspective, right? If there's skills that you're struggling to explain, then you know you need to improve them. If it's just a language thing and you just really suck at writing cover letters, I suck at them myself, just use AI. But, make it yourself, adjust it, etc. But use it to come up with ideas. That's what it's there for. That's what it's really, really good for, generating ideas and using that and then rewriting it and whatnot. So that would be, I guess, my advice on cover letters. It's kind of a hit and miss depending on the company you go to, but in this type of market and in general, I'd say, what the risk of not doing it is greater than the risk of doing it, right? I don't think you have anything to lose by putting in a cover letter, by putting it in, and a lot to lose by not. Yeah.
Thank you. You've touched on the automated filtering before. Could you expand on that? And the keyword searches and how would you?
Yeah. So I guess
how would you include the keywords in your application?
Yeah. So I guess in general, so it depends on company to company how they actually filter what they look for and whatnot. But in general, each sort of role is filtered mostly based on technical skills from a first sort of approach. They have a look at what are the key skills versus what would be nice to have. And normally they do a priority search and then they look through it like that. So it's mostly focusing on the technological skills that you have. And then recruiters will go through and look at the individual resumes that have the technical skills that are matching what they need. And just because the system, it's with long paragraphs and dot points and stuff like that, it's very hard for it to kind of analyze and it's not at that stage yet. But in general, it's focusing on sort of just narrowing it down. And normally what they do from that is the technology stack, right? Do you actually have the tech stack that is equivalent to what we need? And then recruiters will go and have a look at it like that. But it's different from company to company, right? And how they have it set up. This is just general ATS trends that are happening where they are starting to filter resumes through. And some of the ways that you can counter it is by making sure that you do have a bunch of keywords that are related to the job ad within your resume, because normally that's what they use for filtering.
So would you just put a paragraph at the top and say, engineering, blah, blah, blah.
No, what you do is at the bottom of it, you do that in about 200 words and then you make it white. But not actually. But yeah, in general, you put in the summary. What I like to do is at the end of every job experience you've had, what helped me a lot as a recruiter is just having a technology used at the bottom of each job you've had and just showing what tech stack you use at each role. And that kind of helps me see what you've done in each role and where each technology applies. And that also helps with the ATS sort of filtering as well. Yeah.
With recruiting over LinkedIn. So obviously you use a tool, but there's also a tool on our side where we kind of see whatever's coming about. And then they tell us that, oh, you're the top 10% applicant. You should definitely apply for this, but you never get it. Like, what are they? Like, how are they saying that you're a top applicant and you don't even land an interview for that?
Yeah.
So that's like a dilemma that we have. But the second part of that question is, are all the roles that are getting advertised actually going ahead? And if they are not, then how do we end up knowing that we don't waste our time on those roles?
Yeah, so I've answered both those questions. The first one being just LinkedIn's version of that just sucks. If I'm being perfectly honest, the top applicant thing it uses metrics that are used to boost engagement on LinkedIn as opposed to actually sort of applying a role. Like it's making you click apply, right? And it does it based off data that's not actually true. Like, for example, I'm not sure how many people know this, but when you click apply on a LinkedIn, that counts as a job application on LinkedIn, even if you don't submit a job ad. For anyone that clicks the ads, that all goes up. And that's the data that it uses and stuff like that. So it has bots that send it through, right? Of people that use AI systems or whatever to apply for jobs, and then they do it incorrectly. And then that obviously boosts your score up. So it's been happening a lot more lately because every job has been getting so much more just trash applications. So a lot of people have been shooting up to that. You have a top 10% application, but in reality, only the top 10% are actually relevant, right? So that's just kind of how it is. You don't really know by using that statistic whether you're going to get it or not. And so I guess in terms of, are you wasting your time? I guess you never know, right? Every job application you apply for could be a waste of time. Like that's just, you could get the job and it could be a waste of time. You know, I can tell you, I joined, like even myself, I made mistakes. I joined the role July last year, and then I was made redundant in like the 6 months because I didn't ask enough questions, I didn't clarify properly and whatnot, right? So you just don't know, right? But I guess once again, you just need to have that mentality of what's the risk if I don't? And just think of it like that. Even if you get rejected, it's just every opportunity to apply is an opportunity to get a job, right? And just think of it like that. You never got to know whether you're going to get it or not, or you can really just try. Yeah.
So when you mentioned that mirror the skills or tools that recruiters are looking for in that particular
Yep.
role, so isn't it like faking it sometimes also? Like if I know Power BI and the company is using Tableau
Yeah.
data visualization, so is it not like faking it? But also a person who knows Power BI can easily,
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. My general advice is that if you're applying for roles that you don't have the skill set in, start learning it and then show what you're demonstrating by learning it. So you can say, look, I know Power BI. I understand you're using Tableau. I started learning Tableau. This is what I've been doing, and actually show that you're learning, and maybe pull up a Tableau dashboard or something like that as well. Get something really quickly set up that you can just kind of walk them through, and then show this is what I've learned in X amount of time, and then kind of demonstrate to them you've got that learning capability. You're starting to figure it out on your own. Maybe what can you do with a senior data person kind of leading you along and stuff like that as well, right? And teaching you Tableau that you might not know yet. So that's what I would be. I would never lie to an employer about what you can do. Having confidence in your learning capability, that's something you should definitely do. If you don't know how to do something and you're confident you can learn it, tell them that. But the biggest thing is to back it up by showing that you are doing active learning on things that you don't know. Because otherwise everyone says it, right? Everyone says they're learning Tableau if it, in a job ad, if they're applying for it. The difference is showing that you actually are learning, and that'll be what sets you apart. Yeah. So there's no shame in not knowing stuff, but if you don't know something about asking you know it and you're not actively working on it and you say you do, then that's just setting up a bad job relationship, right? I don't think that's something you should do. Yeah.
His point in there was to, tell your results and your achievements. If you are in a role where you don't have direct results, like you're building the reports, you're building the data sets.
Yep.
What exactly are how do you turn these into star points? And,
So I would talk about where you were when you started versus where you are now. So hopefully you've experienced some form of growth in what you've done in your current role, whether it's at university or a previous role and stuff like that. If you're trying to show your achievements, just think about, okay, what have you learned? What have you upskilled? What have you kind of grown into and stuff like that? And explaining that to the employer that, if you're in a position where you don't have stuff like that, you were not extrapolating, but you were doing this in the meantime to help with continuous progression, because sometimes you can't help what you're doing in your role, right? So if you can't show actionable insights in your current role, build something then and show them like that. Show them that you're capable of building something and what it can do and stuff like that. So if you can't focus on actionable achievements in your previous role, focus about your progression, focus about what your current strengths are, and maybe switch into a role where you already have all the skill set, and then you have the opportunity to build something and achieve some statistical things that you can then use to get your next job. That would be sort of my general piece of advice, right? If you don't have anything to talk about now, move into a role where you can. It might be a sideways step, but the ceiling's here in this role and the ceiling's here in that role. So a sideways step can sometimes be a jump towards a more successful career. So that would be sort of my advice in that one. But how are we for time? I think I've probably gone over. One last question, and we're done.
Okay. I think in your previous slide, you mentioned that we should be doing personal projects. So as a recruiter, what would you suggest, or what would you look for the person's personal projects? What would you recommend? I'm a business analyst, so what would you see? What would you say my personal?
For a BA, that's tough. I guess, so for a BA personally, right, I think it depends on the project and sort of what you're applying for, right? Because I think having project-specific experience is more important than sort of general experience for a BA. But that could be different. Like, I'm not an expert on BAs, so that could be different. But what I would recommend doing is thinking about the type of role that you want to apply for and try and build something that would I guess, either replicate that or show that you're thinking about certain scenarios that might occur within that role. So let's say you're applying for a financial institution, right? Just trying to build a work around something that is related to what they actually do within the business, even if it's just something simple, right? And then kind of showing that, I think that would, building something that's specific to the role you're trying to apply for or the type of role you're trying to apply for, and then building up a portfolio that you can use in your interviews for whatever you're trying to apply for. That would be sort of that sort of general piece of advice. Now, specific projects, who knows, right? It depends on your experience, what you currently have going on, what your skill set is, what you're learning, what you're interested in. I would say just build something you're passionate about. Literally go generate a bunch of ideas, try and find something you're passionate about, and then just build it. And then you'll end up finding out that you'll just learn a bunch of stuff along the way that'll probably end up helping you in your next role. Yeah, sorry, that probably wasn't the best help, but hopefully that kind of shows you might be able to do some other stuff as well. Yeah. All right. Cool. Awesome. Back to you guys.
All right. Yes.